The 15th time he rejected me in bed, I finally accepted that my husband was repulsed by me. I retreated to the master bedroom, scrolling through divorce lawyers on my phone, when bizarre floating text suddenly materialized. Thank God, the ugly ex-wife is finally asking for a divorce. Our pure endgame couple is about to meet. Bro, who else is hyped? Watching the untouchable billionaire CEO completely lose his mind over the poor, sweet innocent girl, going at it 7 times a night, that is the spicy content I need. I kind of feel bad for the ex-wife though. She loved him for years, never even got to sleep with him, and walks away with absolutely nothing. Who cares? Everything the male lead has belongs to our sweet Stella anyway. The ex-wife was born a broke loser. Once they divorce, she will be working fast food. Reading those glowing words, a fiery rage boiled up in my chest. Why? Why does his next girl get everything, while I end up with an empty bank account and an empty bed? Blind with anger, I stormed right into the master bathroom, completely ignoring boundaries, and launched myself at Kevin while he was under the shower head. Pure and untouched, huh? I am taking a massive bite first. A rare flash of shock crossed his face. What are you doing? He asked. I stepped right into the shower, getting down to business. I threw my arms around his neck, got up on my tiptoes, and smashed my lips against his. I had secretly loved Kevin for 3 years and had been married to him for 1. This was my very first time tasting the lips of this untouchable man. It was incredibly intoxicating. I could not help but deepen the kiss, biting his lower lip until he let out a muffled groan. He finally snapped out of his shock and shoved me away hard. Wendy, have you lost your mind? Who gave you the nerve to pull a stunt like this? Do not forget our agreement. This marriage is strictly a business arrangement. Right. His wealthy family had backed him into a corner about settling down, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. He used me as a convenient shield, but those glowing comments floating in my vision were stabbing me right in the heart. I refused to swallow this humiliation. Why? According to those comments, that so-called sweet girl had nothing going for her except being a little prettier than me. Why does she get to devour Kevin while I get kicked to the curb with absolutely nothing? I reject that script. I quickly stripped off my wet clothes, showing a reckless stubbornness I rarely displayed around him. We are legally married anyway. I am getting my money's worth out of this arrangement tonight. My sudden outburst seemed to throw Kevin off balance. He completely forgot he was naked. He walked over and gently touched my forehead. What is wrong with you? Are you feeling sick? He looked so gentle and concerned. It was always like this. Always exactly like this. He clearly did not love me. He was usually entirely aloof and distant, but the second I showed any sign of discomfort, he acted like he deeply cared. The bitter ache in my chest became entirely unbearable. I threw myself against his wet chest. Kevin, just kiss me, please. Just kiss me and the pain will go away. The man in my arms tensed up. I could feel a distinct physical reaction pressing against me. Just when I thought Kevin was going to take things further, he let out a long, heavy sigh. His voice turned freezing cold again. Wendy, get out. Our arrangement has not changed. Besides, I do not have feelings for you. We are not sleeping together. Drop this fantasy and just play your role as my wife on paper. Maybe he realized his words were a bit too harsh. His tone softened slightly. Tomorrow, I will have my assistant wire you $150,000. Consider it compensation for your grievances. That night, he slept in the study again. Maybe he was afraid I would ambush him, because I heard the deadbolt click into place. I stared blankly at the locked door, completely frozen in place. The floating text flooded my vision once again. LMAO, I am dying. The ex-wife really thought she was the exception, trying to seduce the male lead. The delusion is real, right? Kevin is a total ice king. If he does not like you, throwing yourself at him is useless. Do not be so mean. I think she is kind of pitiful. Having a legal husband who refuses to touch you is incredibly depressing. Depressing? He just gave her 150 grand. Though knowing this girl's pathetic personality, she will probably refund the money tomorrow. But whatever. Kevin's money is destined for our sweet Stella anyway. And his body too. Sigh. If I were the ex-wife, if I could not get the man, I would at least secure the bag. Exactly. At least she would not end up broke and working dead-end jobs after the divorce. In the original plot, she sees the male lead and Stella looking all happy together, loses her mind, and ends her own life. All because she played the proud martyr. I rested my chin on my hands, sitting alone on the cold stairs. My heart felt suffocated and bruised. The chat was absolutely right. I was playing the proud martyr. I was dirt poor, yet I was trying to play the game of pure, unrequited love. Kevin literally offered me money and I was planning to reject it. If I had not seen those comments, I genuinely would have walked away from this divorce with nothing but the clothes on my back. I cried through the entire night. My eyes were completely swollen, but I finally figured it out. If Kevin was repulsed by me, I needed to play it smart. I would drain as much cash as possible, and when this Stella girl showed up, I would pack my bags and leave on my own terms. Having made up my mind, I crawled back into bed and slept in. I had no idea that when Kevin woke up and saw the kitchen empty, he completely froze. He hesitated for a long time before pushing the master bedroom door open. Seeing the lump buried under the blankets, he visibly relaxed. When he got to the corporate office, just as he was about to start reviewing files, he paused and called his assistant. Here is my wife's routing number. Wire her $500,000 from my personal account. I slept incredibly well. From the day I married Kevin, I had been walking on eggshells, desperately trying to please him. Today was the first time I had ever slept this peacefully. When I finally got out of bed, it was already past 2 in the afternoon. That meant I had failed to make Kevin's breakfast and completely missed dropping off his lunch. I figured he would not care anyway. I grabbed my phone. Surprisingly, there was a text from Kevin. Let us forget about what happened yesterday. I wired you some money. Buy yourself something nice. I opened my banking app. The balance read, $500,152.65. God bless Kevin for turning my bank account into six figures overnight. A bitter smile touched my lips. If I had focused on the cash from the very beginning, I would be financially independent by now. I washed my face and decided to go for a walk. Somehow, my feet dragged me right toward the plaza beneath Kevin's corporate tower. I spotted a young woman in a plain white t-shirt handing out promotional flyers. The floating text started going absolutely crazy. Aha, it is her. It is Stella. She is working so hard. I remember the scene. It is her time of the month and she is in severe pain. The male lead is going to bump into her and take her up to his private office. Really? So this was the girl who would eventually make Kevin go 7 times a night. She was definitely prettier than me. Her skin was flawless and pale, glowing a soft pink even under the harsh sun. Long, straight legs wrapped in cheap denim. Her plain clothes could not hide her natural beauty, but she did look terrible. She was clearly suffering from awful cramps. Right at that exact moment, Kevin strode out of the glass lobby doors. Stella swayed on her feet and collapsed directly into his arms. My vision was instantly completely obscured by words like, OMG, so sweet, and, I am screaming. Just like the chat predicted, Kevin stared at Stella's face, momentarily stunned. For the first time in his life, he did not push someone away. He hesitated for a brief second, then scooped her up into a bridal carry and carried her straight back inside the building. I did not watch the rest. I just closed my eyes. I did not need to guess. The fated couple had met. They would be uncontrollably drawn to each other and fall deeply in love. And I, the unloved stepping stone, was officially written out of the story. It turns out some things simply cannot be achieved through hard work. I felt like crying, but I also wanted to laugh. Wendy, oh Wendy, you are always the one nobody loves. I wandered into a nearby luxury mall in a complete daze and walked straight into a high-end salon. The stylist smiled at me. What kind of look are we going for today, miss? Cut it short, I said. He looked shocked. You have such beautiful long hair. Are you sure you want to chop it off? Yes, cut it right up to the jawline. I always thought Kevin liked elegant, traditionally feminine women, so I tried desperately to mold myself into that image. In the end, he never even gave me a second glance. I knew I was not a classic beauty. I had sharp, slightly European features. Keeping my hair long and soft always felt strangely mismatched. When the stylist finished chopping off the length into a sleek, sharp bob, he smiled. Wow, you know what? You absolutely rock this edgy vibe. My smile was uglier than crying. Really? Maybe this is the real me. Unlike Stella, she just had to stand there to look like a runaway princess. I walked into a boutique next door and bought comfortable, oversized casual clothes. When the cashier asked what I wanted to do with my old floral dress, I said, throw it in the trash. I only bought those dresses trying to guess Kevin's preferences anyway. He hated them. I hated them. Keeping them was pointless. When I got home, I cleared out more than half my closet, donated some, trashed the rest. Around 6 in the evening, Kevin came home from work. He looked surprised when he saw me dragging garbage bags to the door. What are you doing at this hour? I thought you loved that dress. I kept my head down. I do not like it anymore, so it is garbage. Your hair, cut it. It is cooler this way. Oh, he did not push the subject. He walked into the dining room and stared at the empty table. I suddenly realized I had not cooked dinner. Sorry, I am really tired today. Do you want me to order you some takeout? Kevin's eyes stayed glued to my face. No need. I am not hungry. He turned around and walked straight into the guest bedroom. As he brushed past me, a faint scent of jasmine drifted off his suit jacket. It was Stella's perfume. Kevin scrubbed his skin in the shower, his eyes constantly darting toward the bathroom door. After what happened yesterday, he felt entirely on edge. He could not even name the emotion twisting in his chest. It felt like a strange mix of anticipation and resistance. He mindlessly lathered the soap, straining his ears to catch any sound from the hallway. But half an hour passed, and Wendy never barged in. He pressed his tongue against the inside of his cheek, feeling like he was losing his mind. Why was he hoping she would barge in and kiss him again? He did not even like her. He aggressively rinsed off the soap, wrapped a towel around his waist, and stepped out. He told himself he was just hungry and needed to go down to the kitchen to find a snack. But when he reached the ground floor, the living room was completely pitch black. Wendy had already gone to sleep. A heavy, uncomfortable feeling settled in Kevin's chest. He turned around and went back upstairs. That night, he dreamed about Wendy breaking into the bathroom again. And this time, he did not push her away. When I woke up the next morning, there was a plate of food on the dining table. Kevin, who almost never set foot in a kitchen, gave me a slight, awkward smile. You are awake. You looked really exhausted yesterday.
Kevin's smile was stiff, almost as if using the kitchen required more courage than negotiating a billion-dollar contract. You are awake, he repeated. You looked really exhausted yesterday. Wendy glanced at the toast and fried eggs on the table before looking at him. You made breakfast? I asked the chef over video call. So you supervised breakfast? I supervised very carefully. For the first time in days, she almost laughed. The floating comments exploded across her vision. The male lead is hopeless in the kitchen. Wait, wasn't he never supposed to cook for the ex-wife? Is this an extra scene? I don't remember this. Wendy quietly sat down. Thank you. Kevin seemed relieved she hadn't refused the meal. I'll be working late tonight. Okay. I might not come home. Okay. You aren't going to ask why? She spread jam onto her toast. I assumed it was work. Kevin opened his mouth before closing it again. Normally Wendy would have asked where he was going, whether he'd eaten, if he'd need a fresh suit tomorrow. Today, nothing. It felt strangely unsettling. After Kevin left, Wendy took out a notebook. Across the top she wrote in large letters, Divorce Survival Plan. Underneath she made a checklist. Ballot box with check accept every transfer of money. Ballot box with check find a job before the divorce. Ballot box with check learn how investments work. Ballot box with check stop revolving my entire life around Kevin. Ballot box with check absolutely never compete with Stella. The comments flew by. Yes girl. Finally she's using her brain. Wait, I don't remember this either. Wasn't she supposed to refuse the money and cry every day? Wendy's pen stopped. So the story can change. That meant those floating comments weren't fate. They were only describing what had happened before. Not what had to happen now. Her heartbeat quickened. If she could change one thing, could she change everything? Across town, Kevin sat through a board meeting without hearing a single presentation. Mr. Lawson? A director cautiously repeated the quarterly numbers. Kevin blinked. Sorry. That single word stunned everyone at the table. Their famously cold CEO had never apologized for losing focus. His assistant quietly slid another folder toward him. Sir, regarding Miss Stella. Kevin frowned. What about her? The medical expenses from yesterday have been paid. She wanted to thank you personally. Kevin's expression remained calm. Tell her there is no need. But she insists. I helped someone who collapsed. He signed another document. It wasn't a favor that requires repayment. The assistant nodded. Yet as he turned to leave, Kevin unexpectedly spoke again. Did my wife eat breakfast? The assistant froze. Sir, I asked a question. I don't know. Kevin frowned slightly. Find out. The assistant stared in disbelief. He had worked for Kevin for 7 years. Never, not once, had his boss asked whether his wife had eaten. Meanwhile, Stella stood outside the office building holding the thank you card she had carefully written. The receptionist smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, Mississippi President Lawson said he isn't accepting visitors. Stella lowered the envelope. I understand. As she walked away, she didn't notice someone watching from a nearby cafe. A middle-aged woman wearing designer sunglasses slowly lowered her coffee cup. So, she smiled faintly. That's the girl. Kevin's mother had finally decided to meet the mysterious young woman everyone seemed to be talking about. And what she saw made her eyebrows knit together. Interesting. Because the look in Stella's eyes wasn't as innocent as everyone else seemed to believe. Kevin's mother didn't step out of her car right away. She watched from behind tinted glass, studying Stella like she was reading a case file that didn't add up. The girl stood there too still after being rejected at the front desk. Not crying, not begging, just recalculating. Her fingers tightened around the envelope, then loosened again as she forced herself into a practiced, gentle smile. That wasn't innocence. That was strategy. Drive, she said finally. The driver glanced at her through the mirror. Madam. Back to the estate. As the car pulled away, she exhaled slowly. So that's the girl the system is pushing. Back at the Lawson household, Wendy was knee-deep in her new reality. She had sold 2 old handbags online, opened a basic investment tutorial, and was currently staring at a chart like it personally insulted her. The floating comments had gone oddly quiet since morning. Too quiet. Then, wait. Why is she actually changing? No, this isn't the script. She's supposed to spiral after seeing Stella today. Did the system bug? Wendy frowned. System. No response. She tapped her pen against the notebook. So you do exist. A faint flicker appeared in her vision. Error. Observer interference detected. Wendy leaned forward slightly. Observer. The text scrambled again. Character Wendy Lawson is not supposed to retain meta-awareness. Her grip tightened. So I am in a story. The letters paused. Then, yes. Silence. Wendy let out a short breath that almost sounded like a laugh. All right. She closed the notebook. If I'm in a story, then I want to see the full script. That night, Kevin came home earlier than expected. He paused at the doorway. The house was different. Not messy. Not chaotic. Just unfamiliar. No scent of dinner. No soft background noise. No Wendy rushing out to take his coat. Instead, he found her sitting on the living room floor with a laptop, hair sharp in its new bob, expression focused. She didn't even look up immediately. You're back early. You didn't cook. I'm not your maid. That finally made him stop. Wendy closed the laptop. I'm also not your emotional support wife, but here we are. Kevin stared at her. This wasn't the Wendy who apologized for breathing too loudly. What happened to you? She tilted her head. I stopped waiting for you to choose me. A strange silence filled the room. For the first time, Kevin didn't have a rehearsed response. The floating comments suddenly exploded again. Oh? This isn't in the original timeline. Why does he look shocked? He's supposed to be ice cold right now. Kevin didn't see the comments. But he felt something shift anyway, like a door inside him had been slightly cracked open. And he didn't know whether to step forward or lock it again. Wendy stood up. I'm going out tomorrow. To where? She grabbed her bag. To start becoming someone who doesn't need your permission to exist. She walked past him. At the door she paused but didn't turn around. And Kevin. Yes. If Stella is the ending you want, I hope she's worth what you lose getting her. Then she left. And for the first time in his life, Kevin Lawson stood in the middle of a perfectly quiet house, and had no idea what he was supposed to do next. Kevin stayed standing in the entryway long after the door closed. The sound of Wendy's footsteps had already faded down the corridor, but something about the space still felt displaced, like the house itself had shifted its weight. He loosened his tie, then stopped halfway through the motion. She was gone. His phone buzzed. Assistant. Sir, I confirmed. Mrs. Lawson left the premises with luggage. She did not state destination. Kevin stared at the message. Luggage. That word landed strangely. Meanwhile, across the city, Wendy stood at a small cafe table with her laptop open, and a second-hand finance book beside it. Her bank app was still open. $500,152.65. Not a fantasy anymore. No male lead wealth. Her money. She exhaled slowly. Okay, she muttered. Step 1. Don't die poor in someone else's story. The floating text flickered again. Warning. Unauthorized route detected. Character development is deviating from core plot. Wendy didn't even flinch this time. Good. She clicked into another tab. How to register a business. The system paused. Then for the first time. Processing. Back at the Lawson estate, Kevin's mother arrived without announcement. The guards didn't stop her. They never did. She walked straight into the living room where Kevin still stood. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said calmly. Kevin didn't turn. She left. His mother's expression didn't change. So I heard. That finally made him look at her. You knew. I suspected. Kevin frowned. About what? She placed her bag down, sitting across from him like this was a boardroom instead of a collapsing marriage. About the girl you've been ignoring while your system quietly tried to route you toward another. Silence. Kevin's jaw tightened. What system? A faint smile. There it is. Kevin's eyes sharpened. Explain. His mother leaned back slightly. Tell me, Kevin. Have you ever had a thought that didn't feel like it fully belonged to you? He didn't answer immediately, because the truth was, yes. Recently more often than he liked. Small impulses. Irritations without cause. Moments of attention that didn't match his own stated priorities. Like noticing Wendy's silence more than her presence. Like remembering her voice when she wasn't speaking. Like standing in an empty house and feeling like something important had been removed from it. His mother watched his silence carefully. Good, she said softly. Then you're waking up too. Elsewhere, Stella stood outside a small apartment building, holding her phone. The screen showed a single message. Unknown contact. You met him earlier than expected. Her fingers tightened. So it's changing. She smiled faintly. That's fine. She turned her phone off. I can adapt. That night, Kevin couldn't sleep. The silence felt occupied. At 2:13 a.m., he stood in front of the guest room door. Wendy's room. Empty. He opened it anyway. The bed was made. Closet half cleared. A faint scent of laundry detergent remained like a decision that hadn't fully disappeared yet. On the desk sat a single notebook. He hesitated before touching it. Inside. Asterisk learn investing. Asterisk start income stream. Asterisk divorce lawyer options. Asterisk stop waiting. The last line wasn't a plan. It was a warning. Kevin's fingers tightened slightly on the page. For the first time, he didn't feel in control of the story. He felt like he had just been removed from the center of it. And somewhere beyond the visible system layer, the floating text spasmed violently. Error, error, error. Main route collapsing. Secondary heroine priority shifting. Male lead attention not stabilizing. Recalculating in-game couple alignment. Then abruptly, silence. Because Wendy Lawson had stopped following the script, and the story no longer knew where to place her. The silence in the system didn't last. It never did. It only reset. Wendy closed her laptop at the cafe, and leaned back in her chair. 3 tabs were still open. Business registration, freelance consulting rates, and something called how to legally separate assets without getting ruined. For the first time, that felt like progress. Then her vision flickered. System notice. Primary character, Wendy Lawson, has exceeded expected autonomy threshold. She exhaled through her nose. So I'm a problem now. A second line appeared. Correction attempt initiated. The coffee cup in front of her trembled slightly. Not physically, like reality itself hesitated. Wendy stared at it. No. She tapped the table once. I'm not going back. The text stuttered. Rejection registered. Then. Nothing. No punishment. No reset. No emotional spike forcing her into despair. Just silence again. Wendy blinked. Slowly she smiled. Oh. She understood. This thing doesn't know what to do with me anymore. At the Lawson estate, Kevin stood in front of his mother. You're telling me, he said slowly, that my marriage is part of something pre-written. His mother sipped her tea. Not written. Predicted. That's the same thing. No, she placed the cup down. Prediction can be wrong. Kevin's gaze sharpened. And I am. You were consistent, she corrected. That's what made you valuable in it. A pause. Then Kevin said quietly. Wendy wasn't. His mother's eyes flickered, just slightly. No, she admitted. She wasn't. That single confirmation did something subtle to the air. Kevin noticed. So what is she now? His mother smiled faintly. That depends on whether she becomes the first deviation that survives. Meanwhile, Stella stood in front of a mirror in a high-rise apartment she hadn't officially moved into yet. The reflection looked perfect. Soft face. Controlled expression. Carefully chosen outfit. But her eyes weren't soft. They noticed, she murmured. A faint system prompt flickered beside her vision. Route stability low. Stella tilted her head. That's fine. She reached for her phone. If the male lead won't follow the script. Her thumb hovered over a contact labeled support trigger node. Then I'll just accelerate him. She pressed call. Back in the city, Kevin was already moving. Not because he understood everything. Because for the first time, not understanding felt dangerous. He didn't go to the office. He didn't go home. He went to the last known location of Wendy Lawson. The cafe. But she was already gone. Only the barista remembered her. She left earlier, the girl said. Looked like she had somewhere to be. Did she say where? The barista hesitated. She said something like, I'm going to build something that doesn't disappear when someone looks away. Kevin stood very still. That didn't sound like Wendy. Not the Wendy he knew. Not the Wendy he had trained himself not to see. That night, Wendy stood outside a small office space she couldn't afford 2 days ago. Now she could. Barely. The lease papers were in her hand. Her signature was already drying on the page. A tiny startup. No safety net. No story protection. No guaranteed love interest waiting at the end of it. Just her. She stepped inside. The lights flickered on. Empty room. Blank walls. Possibility. And for the first time since the system had appeared, it didn't speak. But somewhere far above her awareness layer, the system didn't sleep. It recalculated. A new category had appeared in the simulation logs. Unpredictable core entity. And beside it, a warning that had never existed before. Do not allow full autonomy completion. Because if Wendy Lawson finished building herself outside the script, then the story wouldn't just change. It would lose its ending entirely. The system tried one last correction. It didn't announce itself this time. Just a quiet, invisible pressure. Like reality attempting to gently push Wendy Lawson back into her assigned shape. Back into grief. Back into waiting. Back into being the ex-wife. Wendy paused in the middle of arranging empty furniture placements inside her new office. She felt it. Not as words. As resistance. Her fingers tightened slightly around the edge of the desk. Still trying. The pressure increased. A familiar sensation crept in. Memories that weren't hers. Emotions that didn't belong. A script trying to reinsert itself into her nervous system. The version of her that cried. That waited at home. That folded herself smaller every time she was ignored. Wendy closed her eyes. Then she said very calmly, "No." One word. And something inside the system cracked. In the Lawson estate, Kevin suddenly stopped mid-step. He didn't know why. But the thought of Wendy no longer felt like absence. It felt like completion. Like she had reached somewhere he couldn't follow anymore. For the first time, the story didn't center him. And he felt it. Stella stared at her phone. The call never connected. Her support node, contact had vanished entirely. She frowned for the first time. That's not possible. But the system didn't answer her either. Far above all of them, the narrative layer shuddered. Final route terminated. Endgame couple not resolved. Protagonist status null. A long pause. Then one last line appeared. New primary entity detected. Wendy Lawson. And after that, nothing. Wendy opened her eyes. The pressure was gone. Not lifted. Gone like it had never been there at all. She looked around her small office. Empty. Quiet. Real. She sat down slowly at her desk and opened her laptop. Typed. Company name registration. Then paused. She added another line beneath it. Independent life development plan. Outside, the city moved like it always had. Unaware it had lost a story. Or maybe, it had just gained a new one. One that didn't know how it would end yet. And for the first time in her life, Wendy Lawson was the only person allowed to